Watch clock. All right, I do have 6 o'clock. I'll call this Tuesday, May 21st meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee together for budget hearings. We received an updated agenda last week by email. If you need a copy of that, I think Ms. Amy has a few here. If no one has that copy, we can look through as we get to this piece. First off, it'll be all right with the committee. I'm going to start with, if there's no objections, we're going to start with the library. I think Ms. Lee has somewhere she needs to go to. So we're going to move to page 34. Excuse me, there, page 34 to start off on the library fund. Apologize for that piece. Ms. Lee, I said, has somewhere to be. She's messaged and let us know. Appreciate the message on that. You have before you a status quo budget with the increases that have been stated at 2.5% increase on salary.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by Ms. Atwood to approve. We're on page 34. I'm sorry, Ms. Overman. I apologize, by Ms. Overman to approve this budget. I have a second as well by Mr. Cochran. Are there any discussions inside this budget at this time? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve this, our 56,500 libraries, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion does carry favorable. Thank you, Ms. Lee. All right, we will move now to page 44 and pick back up on our 118 ambulance. Page 44. Mr. Beatty, if you want to take that podium there, I will turn on that mic. You're on as well. Thanks. It starts on page 44, continues into 40, all the way through to 46. So there's your budget. Why did I say that? We had left off to bring us back to where we are currently at. We had some line items that have changed. If you need me to go back through those, we can. If I wrote correctly, we have, instead of 3 EMTs, 9 EMTs and 3 paramedics is what.
Yes, sir.
I'm on page 45 actually now. It starts on 44. That line item went from 500,000 to 438 as of current. 438,000. That is 9 EMTs, 3 AEMTs, and 3 paramedics for a total of 15 positions. Down to the next one at overtime, which is 55, 130, 187, was budgeted originally at 450,000, was cut to 390,000. Your Social Security and state retirement, Social Security should read $57,552. State retirement should read $53,398. Employer Medicare should read $13,460. Maintenance and repair to the buildings, if I wrote that correctly, went from 50,000 to 1,500. I apologize. Employer Medicare, line item 212. When we adjusted the salary pieces, 13,460. Bringing your total expenditures on page 46 to $1,486,846 at current. Anything I missed in there, Mr. Beatty?
We did cut two of the full-time paramedic slots out, didn't we? Was that what we did last meeting?
It went from 9 paramedics to 3 paramedics.
Correct.
Is that,
Just making sure.
okay. Is that correct? The way I
Yes.
read it? Okay. Did we keep it 9 EMTs?
Correct. Yes, the EMTs and advanced both combined to make the 9 total.
Those two
But
together?
there's
make-
12, there's 12 EMS ambulance positions total.
Okay, then. I stated that incorrectly. I thought the change in salary there was based, when I wrote mine, I guess I misunderstood that night, was more based on what pay rates go to what places. So that would be 6 EMTs
Correct.
and 3
Yes, sir.
AM, okay, and for a total of 12 full-time positions. Everyone clear where we are started? This is getting us back to the place we began. All right. At current, that is what we have worked through. Where would you like to begin? Where? 207 medical insurance.
So they're cutting it down to technically 14 employees, which is the 12 plus Teresa plus Matt. That can go down to 106.
Well, mine doesn't come out of this, does it? It does? Okay. I just
On
checked.
the medical side of it, yes, sir. It's listed here, it is 106,680. So line 207 medical insurance will remove from 129,540 to 106,680. We can talk in a little bit about the end when we need to get there. That cuts everything that is attached to those positions, I believe. All right. You know where we are current? Mr. Beatty, just because it's been asked of me in the public, we mentioned in the last meeting that we run 2 ambulances on all shifts. Can you give me a breakdown of the basis on why we run 2 on all shifts?
Well, if one truck gets a call and then the other truck gets a call, there wouldn't be a second truck to take that second call. You'd be dependent on another county who may or may not send somebody to help. I think it's in the best interest to maintain the 2 ambulances with the safety of the county.
I think that discussion came up on the mentioning that there's some counties around it. I've had some data brought to me stating that our 12,000, roughly 12,000 citizens would in most anywhere account for only 1 shift, 1 ambulance is what has
Yes,
been brought towards me.
if you were in a larger county that had other ambulances in other zones, then yes, this would only have 1 ambulance in it, but if we had another truck, like Westmoreland's got divided up basically in 3 zones. I'm sorry, Macon County. So if the 1 truck leaves to go on a call, the truck from another zone can cover that call and vice versa. So we don't have that option because we only 1 county. When our county is our 1 zone.
Do our surrounding counties render aid if needed?
They do. But it's not guaranteed. There's been times we haven't been able to get somebody and we've had to wait for our ambulance to clear a hospital and come back.
How many of our calls, I think you stated 3 per day was our average.
We're
How many
doing
those are we taking to our local hospital?
I think on average, we're around 25 to 30 a month will come here out of 150.
Out of the 150?
Mhm.
So it's 20%. So the other 80% of the time on a call, the ambulance is out of county.
Correct. A lot of times, yes.
Just some questions that I've
Sure.
had brought to me and I want to make sure we got them out. Do you see is there and I know it's medical, but we never know and can predict the future. Is there a time when two is more uh, is better to have on staff, and maybe is there a better time to have to cut down to one shift? Is it available?
I think if you do that, you're gonna lose half your staff. Then we're gonna be back where we were with not staffing. So I mean, I would say the majority of the calls happen between 8 o'clock in the morning and probably 10, 11 o'clock at night, somewhere in that time frame. I'd have to run a report to give you a 100% accurate number on that. But there's
Most
time-
active, so.
Yeah, I'd say on the average, that portion of the day, but like I said, you're at the will of the public when they call, so it's. Like this morning, we had a wreck. We had two patients, so one was pretty seriously injured. So if we only had one ambulance, now we're dependent on waiting for another truck from somewhere else on somebody who could potentially have life-threatening injuries and die before they get there.
And I appreciate your willingness to step up and make those statements. It's about care. Don't hear what I'm not saying. There also comes a bottom line at some point in time, as I was just asking those questions that
Yeah,
are
no,
been brought up.
that's fine.
If we do one ambulance on one shift out of 3 shifts, right? Is that what we're talking about? What's the cost difference?
You're going to restate your question for me in terms of one,
If there's a certain shift that, that would be better to have one ambulance on, what are we talking about the savings if we cut and only have one ambulance some of the time?
And that'd be two employees,
you-
two EMTs. Amy probably has those numbers faster than I could tell you what they were with insurance and stuff.
yeah, that's quite a bit of pieces. I mean, you've got a 26 pay periods.
Mhm.
You could start to figure it there. You've got 120 hour and a 96 hour in those 26 pay periods. I think we were told that roughly 16 of those.
I think you'd be right at a little over 100,000,
I'd have to do
but
some,
that's not including benefits and stuff. I don't have
Correct.
those numbers.
just on
That's
salary.
just salary. I don't know if that offset the potential liability of a civil suit against the county for not having it when you've had it for so long.
How many years have we had? Two.
Before I came here, it's been almost 11 years.
As we look at the pieces, Mr. Beatty, I think the conversation that we're having is more not driven at any individual, but more driven at the bottom line and cost that have, and I told y'all on everybody, I was gonna bring out those pieces, but when people have mentioned 90.7 or 90.1%, 90.77% was actually the increase over a 4-year period of cost. That's a large, alarming number.
I mean, I think the cost increase was what was approved by this governing body in salaries. I mean, that's the majority of the cost increase.
Won't disagree at all. Not by any means. It's continuing that continued movement. Is our pay at a pretty, fair place now?
I believe so, yes.
All right, I'll ask the question. What's the will of the body, where we are at this point? Is there something, is there another line item you want to look at? Is there something we need to work through?
Is the increase in supply cost, is it went up that much from 37.9 to 50,000? Supplies went up that much?
Yeah, supplies of, just like everything else, has increased fairly significantly. I mean, we're having to replace our cardiac monitor batteries. They're $800 a piece. I mean, it's,
Yeah, that makes. Grocery bills gotten higher. Everything else has with it.
And on a weekly basis, how often is the second ambulance needed?
every day. We used both of them today, this morning, on one call. Every day, pretty much, yeah.
So can you give me a bottom line now? At this current 1,463,986. Your bottom line, 1,463,986. What is that fund balance? Bringing the bottom fund balance to 301,256. $301,256. That's on page 47, that fund balance. I noticed our workman's comp has gone up quite a bit. Is that just increases in cost of workman's comp? Yep, not premiums are going up. As I look through this piece, I'll say it this way, I don't see cuts available without cutting something else. Any further discussion? Mr. Cochran?
I think it was brought up about the patient charges. I- Can you touch back over that? Is there is there a number out there that's outstanding that's yet to be collected, or I know there was a debt collection process, I think you said, is that
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
What is out there for the patient charges that's still uncollected? Do you have that number?
If you, well, let me see if I can find it. It's the one that says bad debt. And that's what's sent to collections. So year to date, it's $94,500, 46 cents.
That
It's
will not be in your budget.
on the email Amy sent out, the month end. It's 94,546 cents.
That's year to date, bad debt.
That's to date. Well, into April. For the month, it was 13,832.
A little over 100,000 at this point then.
Yes, sir.
Some of that may be collected in this month, hopefully.
Correct. It's possible. Yes.
Out of how much what is the total patient charge this year?
I'm sorry.
What was the total patient charge for this year?
So far, we have contacts are really dry. Patient charges is for the year, $860, $91.19. And for the month of April, it was 95, $644, 98 cents.
That's roughly 10%. That's not it's a little over, higher than 10%, but 10% is not a bad number, folks. I agree, it's a little over, closer to 12, but it's not a far stretch. All right, folks, we can look at these numbers all night long. They're not gonna change. As I look at these, I'm not trying to push anybody in any direction, but you either have one of two options, the way I see it. The only cuts available are if the county looks to cut shifts, or cut a bus. In that case is what we're talking about, from 1 to 2. I'm not saying that's my push now, but that's been brought to the table of conversation. It's that, or we pretty well have a budget that's gonna be our cost. I will say that before I would be wanting to make a move to cut any shifts, I would hope that we have a plan, within there used to be like signed agreements of mutual aid, I believe, or just stating of mutual aid. Is that still in place?
I mean, it's just surrounded mutual aid. I don't believe we have signed agreements, but
We got it.
they're only gonna do it so many times and they're not gonna come.
That's correct. My apologies, my ADHD are kicking in on the side here. These screens on the side are killing me. So, I don't know what's going on, but they are listed there, please.
I can understand why everything that he's got is going on. And some of it dramatic.
I,
From one year to the next, that's unreal.
I think we've seen unreal cost increase this year. Are there any certain line items you'd like to look at? Based on, when you say going up based off the budgeted from last year or the estimated amended budgets for this year? Because we've made some estimate amendments and things look to be in pretty strong line there.
It's more than we were last year.
That's correct.
I can see how everything can go up at one time.
I think we've seen that in the,
Bottom line. What, $400,000 more?
currently, actually, we are at
That's where we started out.
I see about 200,000 more. Maybe we're looking at a different place.
I'm looking at what it was in
22.
24. The bottom line was 125,274. And over here in 24, 167,482.
Mr. Ford, the budget, no, sir. The budgeted amount for 23-24, the budgeted amount is the second line, second column, which was 1,452,973. That's what we budgeted last year. The difference you're seeing there, the 1.2, 1.25 is due to the fact that he hadn't had a full staff, so it hasn't paid out as much this year. So it's actually come in 200,000 under budget is the estimated total. I see what you're at there in this case. technically, this budget now is up $11,000 over last year. Where we've cut it to. It's up $11,000. Hopefully it comes in around that 252 and we. No, that is it was in January, but that's the estimated expected cost for that entire year. So that number was prorated from January. And unless we've seen any major amendments, which we have not seen budget amendments for this, you would not see a change in that. Is everyone clear with where we are? As I said, based off last year's budget, this budget is up roughly $11,000 as of current where we've got it cut. Mr. Gregory, will you take a chair from your floor? You can take it from your spot if you wish to, if that's all right with everybody here. You gotta get up and move. I'm fine with moving.
Mr. Gully,
I would recommend that we approve this budget as is without any further cuts at the moment.
y'all got a motion? I hear a second. A second, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? I need a show of hands. All four?
We can vote here if you wish to. You should see a vote on your screen. Please hit what you wish. If you abstain with the 0, you will have to give a cause for abstain or it will count as a no. All votes in. Okay. Mr. Ford, have you got a vote?
You've already stopped the vote, so he can't vote.
How about stop?
You've already stopped it, so.
We're gonna do a revote on that. I apologize. Technical malfunction. Please vote again, please. Remember, as I stated, the 0 abstain. All right, it looks like all votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote? All right, at this time, we will lock the votes. That would be 3 noes and 3 yeses. It is tie. The abstain vote, Mr. Belcher, did you abstain for cause? Okay, so yours was a no vote? Okay. That is a 3-way tie, straight down, 3-3 tie. All right, what do you wish to move? Mr. Gregory?
Overtime, is it no way to get this overtime figured out? Is all the counties around still do everybody does the same, the 24 on 48 deal, or?
Yes, for all the ones around us, yeah. If you cut overtime, you're gonna make it up in regular time. It's gonna end up being the same amount. Like, you're not gonna take people that are making 45,000 a year and then pay them 35 and expect them to stay just because you cut their overtime out. That's just not a reasonable expectation.
If they are making 52 and you cut it to 48, is that a stay?
I wouldn't.
The only reason I make those numbers, I think you mentioned that Macon County's EMTs make 46 to 48, where ours are making 52.
Our basics are making about the same, or just a tad bit more than what they make, but everybody else is either right on or just behind. I'd have to pull those numbers back up again for Macon, but we're in line with what Macon County is paying.
I think in the last meeting, if I went back over it, I think they were 46 to 48 EMTs and we were at 52.
Let me see if I can find it for you real quick.
Without any other solutions, my proposal is that we're gonna move this to the budget to the commission as a three-way tie or as a tie of a non-recommended tie. That's really all I see we can do if I don't have any other suggestions from the body.
The ones that voted no, do they got anything they can have to bring up in question?
Anything inside your no votes that you see that we can maybe change, that would look at those pieces, I'm here to hear your suggestions, certainly.
Mr. Beatty, I think I asked you last year, if they was to be in a bind out there, do you fall and cover a shift yourself to help out to bring it in for overtime, and you could take off a day when it's slow? Or, I mean, I think I asked you that last year.
Yes, while I'm at work, I do hop on the truck if we're short or if we need help. Macon's 46 to 53 for their EMT basics.
Thank you, sir.
If there's a weekend shift that's short, are you coming in to cover that? Or is somebody else coming in and paying them overtime?
We give out to the part-time people first, and then if we'll do overtime or I'll help. I've got kids playing travel ball. I'm rarely here on a weekend, so it's not very feasible for me to do it on the weekends, but when I'm here, I'll help out as much as I can. Sometimes we just have one truck. I mean, that's just, we've only got enough staff to staff the trucks we have. Those are few and far between, but occasionally.
Is this overtime pay? Is that the holiday pay that they get too in that overtime, or does they get the same holiday pay as county employees? Is that in overtime pay?
Their holiday pay is 13 days at 24 hours. I don't think we can cut that here in this piece. That would have to be cut in our personnel could do it, the commission could do it, but it would have to be cut inside our wage, that's not called the wage studies, our pay scale, or what's the term I'm looking for? That's the word I was looking for, personnel policy. It would have to be cut in our personnel policy. It currently is in our personnel policy at 13, at 24 hours, at a shift call, at a shift, normal shift. No, yeah, that would have to be done as a law, an ordinance. I haven't heard any reason anyone would make a change in their vote. We can vote again if you wish to, or we can move it as a tie. 3-4, 3 against. I think that's a great question.
There was 2 positions in this last budget that was unfilled, is that right? It's basically 2 vacancies that weren't filled.
We've removed them the last meeting.
Yeah, but coming into this budget, there were 2 vacancies that y'all had that.
Yes, correct.
Not filled.
Actually, I think three are not filled.
That's like 3 positions not filled.
Okay. You know, more people, if they would work, if you could hire more people, that obviously would take care of the overtime solution. If you got more people, there's people take off, there's less overtime going around. The only fixes that I see fairly reasonable is hire more people, but there was a whole year that 3 positions were vacant. Or the other solution, 3 positions that were vacant. And then the other solution to the overtime pay would be, you know, as a director, step in more and help fill to help kind of cut that overtime cost off, but, that's my opinion.
Understood your statement. I think we've been without those positions for a little over 2 years, if I remember.
Probably, yeah, at least.
May have been 3, so it's been a while. You're exactly right. A part of my, the public, I think, discussion has been if we've had trouble getting employees, that's been part of the conversation. That's why the overtime's up. That was part of the discussions that came up in the, why don't we cut to 1 ambulance? Or why can we not? Was actually the question that was asked. I personally don't see any other options inside this than what we have right there. Either A, it's cut to 1 movement. I need to hear a motion if we're ready to move on where we are, if anyone's ready to make motions or changes. But I care not, we can move it as a tie, or we can make it a revote if someone's willing to make that motion again. I have a motion to approve as it is and seconded by Mr. Cawthorn with the budget that is presented with a total budget of $1,463,968, leaving the fund balance at $301,256 for this account. Do I hear any discussion before we vote again? We'll bring that vote one more time before you. We will vote on the, and I'm gonna leave the abstain option there because I don't know who all works where. Please vote your recommendation. All votes cast. Anyone wish to change their vote? All right. We are favorable at 5-1. I appreciate your looking through this budget. I appreciate the time taken. 118 is favorable at this moment.
Mr. Beatty, I would just recommend that if you was to get shorthanded, maybe try to help out as much as you can and maybe take off during the day as slow or something. Now, that's what, I mean, that's my recommendation. I mean, we need you to fill in more if we shorthanded.
I do feel in when we're shorthanded, like I said earlier. Me filling in 10 or 12 times during the year that we have somebody working overtime or something is not gonna save $100,000. I mean, you're looking at maybe 8 hours of overtime. It's just not, it's not gonna decrease it the way y'all are looking to decrease it.
So what's your regular shift?
I'm sorry,
What's your regular shift? You set your own hours?
my regular shift, 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Oh, yeah, 7:30 to 4.
That's their hours too?
I don't know what other ones were, to be honest with you. I've searched somewhere. They do 8 hours. I don't know what their clock in and clock out times are.
All right, with that said, we will move, any other discussion for Mr. Beatty before we move on? With that down, thank you for your time there. We will be moving to the local health department, page 30. back up to page 30. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. All right, we are looking at Public Health and Welfare Local Health Center, 55,110. You see a status quo budget. I lied a little bit. It's up $1. I have a motion by Mr. Cochran to approve, second by Ms. Overman. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. Second by Ms. Overman. I apologize. That brings us to, the animal shelter, page 31. Ms. Trout, I believe you're here if you wish to take the podium. You don't have to, but if you wish to, you're welcome to. I did receive that email 95. You should have received an email this afternoon earlier with some cuts in there. I'll go through those first here for you. Give me just a second for my phone to load. All right, going through the lines. If I'm looking at this correctly, building improvements has been removed from the new projected budget. The 7,500 line item 707 has completely been removed, bringing the total to $93,383. That is the only. Page 31, number 707, building improvements line item has been taken out in the projected, in the new budget that was sent out this afternoon. You should have received that in emails this afternoon. I just want to be clear on it now. Stroud, I do have a question, if you don't mind taking it. How many, do you have any totals on how many animals we've serviced this year through the animal shelter?
Currently, so far, I believe it is, off the top of my head, I think it's about 129. I could be wrong from fiscal year.
129
I
animals?
believe so. Mhm.
How many do you currently have?
Total about 42.
Your monthly operating cost in terms of food and needs there, what's that monthly cost on food?
It's actually probably about, I'd say on an average, 750, give or take a little bit. I'm trying to reduce that.
$750.
Mhm.
I have an April $2,500 roughly. Does that sound right?
Mhm.
So how are we averaging 750?
That was before. all of the current intakes that we have. We had a donated amount of dog food that was used to feed, and now that we were out of that, that is gone.
So without that donated amount, do you expect the cost to remain at $2,500 a month?
No, like I said, I'm trying to reduce that, trying to get much more of a feasible amount.
I asked that because I see food supplies at $3,000, food, treats and vet supplies.
Mhm.
I assume that includes vet treatments.
No, that's just, if you're talking about services, that's the next 357 line item is 8,000. That's a different.
Veterinary services. What services would those be, for example?
Usually seeing the doctor in just different capacities. Each animal has to be examined. I'm not a veterinarian, so it has to see the doctor.
I just noticed from the actual budget of 22-23 at $2,685. That's a large increase to 8,000 projected or 7,600 this year. So in a year, that increased three times the cost.
Yeah, because we have more intakes. Mhm.
So we're taking in 3 times the number of
Absolutely,
in 1 year.
absolutely. Mhm.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Mike.
You said 750 a month for food,
I would say on average, it's probably more than that.
but your line item is only $3,000 for animal food and supplies.
Yeah, I'm trying to get something a little bit more feasible that we're not having to pay that amount of money.
So you're seeking donations.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
And you had donations before, but you've run out.
that's right.
And where those came from, you can't get them again.
It is on a come, first served basis, and they service this particular business services the United States. And so I'm not guaranteed if I'd be
Okay.
getting it again. Yeah.
So you could potentially have to do a budget amendment to get more on that line item.
Potentially. Mhm.
Walk me through how the shifts run at the animal. You're a full-time attendant and a part-time attendant. How do y'all set that up? What's a day look like? Or a week look like? Let's go through 7 days,
What do you mean shifts?
shifts wise.
You talking about mine or
Yes.
theirs?
The two, you've got one part-time, correct?
Currently have one. I did have two. Mhm.
It's budgeted for 2
It's
part-time.
budgeted for two, yes.
That's not written on hours. So what does a normal weekly 7-day shift look like set up? Walk me through 7 days of,
So it depends on the season. Typically, we're much busier in the summer. People are moving around, dogs are getting, coming in much more. Typically, we have a shift in the morning for the part-time employee. I'm there throughout the day, mostly taking in calls, talking to, the sheriff's department, people in general. We give out donations and things like that. So it just depends on what's, the day. In the cooler months, we're not as busy, and then the hours are less. So the part-time employees they're less hours.
so you just said that part-time AM, you have a part-time individual in the AM to feed, and that's all you gave me.
Oh, sorry, part-time, they are there to feed and clean, and then it depends on, how busy the day is, if we're taking dogs to the doctor, if we're doing intakes, if we're seeing potential adopters, if we're talking to volunteers, to fosters. I mean, there's it's very different. I can't give you a routine because every day is different.
Even for your part-time work?
Yes. As far as the morning routines, the animal husbandry is about the same, but, it just depends on the day itself.
So am I hearing you say there are no set hours at the animal shelter?
We are open 10 to 4, Monday to Friday. We are there from 8 to 5. Those 8 to 10, that's used to feed and clean. get the day ready, and then we're open to the public from 10 to 4. I am there from 8 to 5. Part-time employees are typically there from 8 to 2, 8 to 11, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, different shifts, depends on the season, like I said. There are about 1.5 days. I say that because there's not always a second day that all of us are there, but that's usually for volunteers, fostering, getting people to come in, talking to the community. It just depends. But there is a day that we're all there. Typically, it's a half a day for the part-time employee.
How long have you currently only had one part-time employee?
Less than 3 weeks.
Okay. I ask these questions because as I go back and look through the budgets, I think this 55-120 was created in 2020, if I remember that correctly. If I've looked at it correctly, and it wasn't a position, it wasn't an entity until then, in our budget. I believe the goal was to move to 503, 501, 503C at that time, 503C at that time. I believe we put in like 25,000, if I go back and remember it, the first year, towards the county, and then the county has upticked its, involvement year over year, to now $93,000. Are there any cuts you see in here available?
So once we get the repairs to the building fixed and done, a lot of these costs will be gone completely. And then as far as the 501c3, once that's finished, I do have a plan on carrying that over into the 501c3 so that the community would just support the shelter until it is moved over into a nonprofit or a privately owned.
Mr. Ford?
524.
Line item 524, in-service staff development. 250 to 2,500.
Yeah,
Is there a reason you have no expenses in staff development this year, but yet are budgeting an increase of $1,000?
Yes, annually, it's called ACAT, the Animal Control and Care, does a continuing education, and I was budgeting this year that we would be able to go to that.
Where is that held at?
This one is in Pigeon Forge.
How many days?
I think it's 3.
And you're taking 2 employees?
3. I'm hoping to take the 3 if we can find support to be able to run the shelter while we're gone. It would just be feeding and cleaning. The shelter will be closed for those days. If not, then it would just for the one. There would be an extra person staying behind, rather.
Is that required training?
As far as being able to feed and clean,
Is that required? No, is that required training, the ACAT training?
it's a conference.
Is it required training?
Yes.
So you must attend, you must attend.
Not necessarily must. It's a lot of information on, better health and care and different things like that. Animal control. It is something that we are trying to do to go in the right direction for the shelter. The answer to your question is no, it's not required training as far as that continuing education because we're an animal shelter.
349 took a big jump too.
Where are you at with the 501c3?
So I'm using Chris Johnson here in town, and everything is put together. We're really just waiting on the IRS.
It's been submitted?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
How long do you think it would take to get it moving?
What is this? May? I'm hoping maybe a month. We submitted it, I believe, in March. It's been submitted for much longer than that, but I believe it's just backing up with the government, really. This has, been going on for quite some time. I think it's just waiting on the government to kind of catch up.
What's the weekend staff look like?
I'm trying to be open on Saturday, but because of one employee, what we typically do is just feed and clean. I try to be open for adoption opportunities, but that's not always the case. It's one part-time employee and usually with a volunteer. Like I said, just having one employee, that's not always the case. We do a lot of different events, so that's not something that we can do, have extra people at the shelter and those events. So it's just kind of, we're trying to figure that out. The weekend scheduling is feeding and cleaning with one employee.
How would this department differ if it only had one employee? Do you have enough volunteer help?
So volunteers kind of come and go. At one point in time, I could have said yes. I can't say that now.
How many volunteers do you have now
3
that come regularly?
regularly. Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Go
What
ahead.
is your plan for donations and with the 501c3? What is your plan moving forward with that?
So with the 501c3 status, I can reach out to businesses like Purina One, there's another company off the top of my head, I can't think of it, but they give out these grants that consist of food. And so that's the plan with the 501(c)(3) status. Currently, I can't do that because of the status that we're in. It's, government entity.
So your plan is only to get food donations, not necessarily monetary donations to keep you for operations?
Oh, it's gonna be both.
Okay.
As far as the food goes, that was the plan, is seeking out those food opportunities. But yes, grant as far as monetary would be, there are several 501c3 grant opportunities that we can utilize to support this. So typically what happens is a shelter in the capacity that's owned by a private entity would get a government contract. And that usually looks like, in order for, the government to support it, we would go out and pick up something. Usually that looks like the form of stray animals, and we would get, a yearly income, if you will.
I can fix it, sorry. I'll put this in the form of where I want to look at this piece moving forward. The part-time attendant, I would like to see, I'll make a recommendation that we cut that to 0 and cut out the part-time attendants and use volunteer staff in those positions. In the hopes that there's volunteers in 501(c)(3) money that can start filling those gaps in the future. Mr. Gregory,
Mr. Ford brought up that 349, asking for it's a $2,000 for printing stationery forms. What, I mean, there's no discussion on it. He asked about it, but why is that up?
was it 349 he asked about?
Yeah.
349, $2,000. Paint, printing, stationery and forms. Do you know what that is for?
I'm sorry, there's another question.
3.
There is, I believe that there are some costs in that one that just haven't been put on that line. I could be wrong. We are planning on trying to put some shelter information on our van, and that would be covered under that line item.
Mr. Gregory, would you like to move that back to 750? Cutting that line item 349 back to $750. the 2,500 on ACAT. That was budgeted at 250 2 years ago. It's at 2,500 budgeted this year. It was 1,500 budgeted last year with no expenses in it. The line, in-service development 524. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Cutting to back to the 1,500. Back to the $250. $250. Miss Amy, can you give me totals? Because that's gonna cut Social Security and state retirement if at this point goes forward.
Social is 21, 28.
Social will be 21, 28. My recommendation was to cut out the part-time, yes, and use volunteer help. We had 3 regular volunteer helps. That would cut social to 21, 28. That's line item 201, 204. Okay,
212, Medicare is 4.
498 on Medicare.
Can I just say those 3 volunteers are not on a regular basis of feeding and cleaning. Those are different capacity volunteers. They're there regularly.
What's that make the bottom line that we're at current? 68,353. It's in your hands now as we've got it to this point. What would you wish to do? Part-time attendance line 169 to $0, no part-times. To $0, no part-times.
I make a motion, we approve the cuts to the 68,353, and then I say later on, maybe if she don't have no volunteer help and really needs one, maybe she can come back to us.
Have a motion and a second with the approved budget pieces. Bottom line, $68,353. I already have a second, but thank you, Mr. Ford. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. Thank you, Ms. Rapp. I'll let the body decide here in this case, the litter program, which is on page 32, turn the page. I think the grant administrator currently is Katie Hunter. And she mentioned that she would not be able to be present tonight. She has somewhere she needed to be. I'm sorry, page 32, the litter grant. I think it's page 32 if I wrote it right. Bottom of page 32, sanitation, education, litter program grant, 55,720. Is everybody with me there now? I apologize. Hey, while we're here, let's go up to 170, and let's cover that one first. I don't see it in our budget unless I missed it somewhere. I apologize. We'll do it later on the sheriff. Okay, I was about to say, it's not listed on my piece, and we just missed it. Sorry, y'all. It's my fault. I'll take blame entirely. 55,720 then. Litter program. I know in the past, the litter program has, I'm sorry,
Can I just make a motion to approve? It looks fine.
Stay the same.
it stayed the same. I know I was gonna mention this, the sheriff has mentioned it again, and I'll mention it here, that the litter program up until about 2021 was under the sheriff's department. It got moved out of the sheriff's department in 2021. He mentions that pretty regularly.
Why?
It was, litter grant? Miss- Sheriff mentions it regularly, that it was under his. Katie, your daughter? I said, all right. It's turn. Thank you for the clarifications. The sheriff has mentioned it multiple times that it was under the sheriff's department. Mm-hmm. I will allow you to make the motion. Motion to approve. Second. 55-720 has a motion to approve as budgeted. Any discussion? I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, as the motion is stated, a favorable recommendation, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It is favorable. All right, where are we moving next? Senior Center, just turning the page to 33. Both these 56-100, I believe, and 56-300. Mr. Gregory, I noticed a large increase in the amended 23 budget and the proposed budget. It's actually up 19%. Is there can you give me some understanding on why? If you don't mind, will you come to the podium to talk? The 23-24 amended budget, $66,574 to the proposed budget of $79,326 is up 19%.
I wrote some grants and we got the money in and of course we spent the money. With TCAD this year, they gave me $8,000 for some improvements at our building. And I also wrote a $6,200 grant from GNRC for new things in our center also. We got a new computer lab, we got tables, chairs and everything. So my spending was more because I brought in more.
Miss Gregory, this 56-100 doesn't have those grants and cost in it. It just has the cost of the employees and the overtime, advertising, Medicare, those pieces.
Oh, okay.
Not at all does it have anything about grants and those expenditures in it. So that the expense of the department is up 19% just on the basis of employees.
Well, it was approved that I could bring in a part-time employee. I did just hire one at 17 hours. I am the only person that can do all of the activities at the center. And if I leave the center for vacation or sick time, the center basically shuts down. I have just upped my classes from 6 to 11 classes of exercising a week. And I have to have somebody to help me.
So the cost is for that part-time employee,
Yes,
one full-time on top of you and a part-time,
the full-time is 35 hours. She doesn't exceed 35 hours.
35 per week.
Yes.
And the
Yes,
part-time is 17, and then yourself.
yes. In any and all overtime, I get paid, or the county gets paid by GNRC for my overtime, because all my overtime is the exercise programs, and that's 3D money.
Every budget that's been up, I'm questioning.
Oh,
why,
I'm
and
sure.
I want
I'm
them to hear
sure.
why.
I can tell you, I'm gonna put in a little plug for the center. The reason I'm upping my classes from 6 to 11 is we've outgrown the building, and I have to cut every class in half and do them back to back to back to back with exercising.
All right, you see the 56,100 as proposed? Are there any line items you wish to discuss? Mr. Ford, that's what I was just going over there with her in the additional part-time employee. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 17 hours additional part-time employee. I believe that was approved through it. It was not in last year's budget, but I think it was done sometime this.
It was the year before, and I have not been able to hire anybody that stays, because once they figure out that they have to stand in front of a class and get CDLs to drive the van, they're gone. So we've had this position open forever and a day, and I keep trying, and the people just can't stay.
There we go. Mr. Ford, did you hear that part? So the position has been input, but it has not been hired until recently. That's why if you'll notice, last year was budgeted at 33,000. It jumped to 42 this year. That's just increases in salary, I assume. And this year was only paid out at 15,250 estimate. You will notice the director is a quarter here and 3/4 in the next. So 36,715 and 12, 48, 49,000. All clear? All right, I'll put it in the hands of the body. I have a motion to approve, Mr. Cochran, a second by Mr. Gregory. This is for the 56,100, I believe. Is that for both? One or both? I care, whichever way you want to go. 56,100. Any discussion further? If not, I'll raise the vote. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. All right, next up, 56,300.
Approve it.
Always good to see one decrease. I think the majority of those decreases are due to building work that's already been done and completed. That's where your grants came into play. So we have a motion to approve. I have a second by Ms. Overman. Any discussion further on 56,300? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. And any opposed, it is favorable.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna find out. We have, your next up is your UT extensions, page 36, top of the page. Uh, 57,100 agricultural UT extension services. Pretty much, it is a status quo budget.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second by Mr. Cochran. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. It is favorable. Why are we not- I didn't- My apologies, I had missed, I thought I'd try to write on every one of those. I was trying to figure out why I missed 7,500. Next up, we have Veteran Services, page 37. Bottom of the page, 58,300.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. It's a status quo budget, actually with a little bit of a decrease. Have a second by Mr. Cochran. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye, it is favorable. That is. That is what we have for tonight's agenda. If it would be okay with the people, did I miss one? Mr. Slade, you just in attendance? You want to move on with some public works? We're ready tonight? That's up to y'all, what y'all want to do here. I was gonna try to bring in highway department and move with it, because they're not gonna be present tomorrow night. It's one thing I was gonna move ahead with. You think we can get through that one in that amount of time?
I don't know.
Sir? Yours is easy? All right, folks. I have not prepared for that, so let me go and find 51,800. I'm working backwards. Give me just a second, sir. Oh. 51,800 county buildings is on page 15. We roughly have a status quo budget on 51,800.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve 51,800. I hear a second on that motion to approve. Any discussion further? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. That is 51,800. Let me find again. Parks 56,700. Thank you, sir. Just, we got there together. Page 35. It is only on page 35. Mr. Slee, I do have a question. It appears our line item 149 has increased. Did we add a position there?
Show me, tell me where you're at.
Laborers, 149 on page 30. I don't know if you got the same pages I've got. So you got the same page numbers? 50, exactly. 56, 700.
Mine's not on 35. Just a minute, let me get there. Okay, line 149.
Yes, sir.
What we have is a full-time and a part-time in that department.
Are these new positions?
He's been there 2 years. He's usually a winter layoff. But this year he stayed year-round, Mr. Eric Hall.
Okay, I just went from 85,000 to 110,000, on the budget there.
Yes, sir.
So those are no new positions.
No, sir. He just went year-round. He was summer help only, and now he's gone, it's 4 hours a day, year-round.
Understood.
Huh?
That makes the difference to, from the 85 to the 110. That's like a position, that's 25. There are 4 total positions in this: groundskeeper, 2 laborers, and park security. Park security was put in a year or so ago. Is this?
Well, I know they're not filled right now then. We don't, because we only have 2 in there.
It, I know groundskeeper was added, so is there an additional laborer's position being added here? I'm sorry, groundskeeper and park security, those are 2 different things, correct?
Yes, sir. We have a night security. That sounds like a little bit much to me.
It was budgeted at 85. It's, expected to estimate cost this year 59, but it's budgeted next year at 110. That would be like adding a position, that's $25,000. Something's, I just don't, I don't
Yeah,
understand it.
I can't explain it. I mean, right now we don't have that many in there. It's probably why we're at 59. I'd have to double check and make sure that there's not somebody in that position.
Can we come back to that tomorrow night then?
Is that right, Amy? Those are not all full, right?
Yeah, come to my office in the morning, we'll look over it.
All right.
I think that's the best move on this one, because
Okay.
I don't see, there's some, Mr. Slee, I want to say this, I think you do a really good job running your staff. That's not
Thank
what
you.
we're questioning here. There is a pretty heavy increase in this department.
Okay.
I haven't figured it out because I usually work the day of, but we'll try to do that real quick.
Yes, sir.
If that meets.
On the bright side, it will look a lot better next year because we've used the Indeed employment service here for the state of Tennessee and Trousdale County this year. So we've had 5, I believe, signed up with that program this year. So our summer help laborers are all being paid through that program.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, we've got 5, I believe. I know 4 for sure free laborers right now.
Great to hear. So that labor is being paid through a different.
Yes, sir.
It's an increase of 20.5% in the bottom line. Projected. Now, the expected budget is low at 198, so I get what you're saying. You're coming in well under budget. It seems that I never have a problem with that. It just, the concern
Yes, sir.
is we might need to look at
We'll
that one.
circle back. No problem.
Let's circle back to that one tomorrow night. if I understand correctly, the water department will not be here tomorrow night. We have their, I said water department, I like highway fund will not be here tomorrow night. If it be all right with the members, I would like to look over the highway fund real quick. You were handed this today, I think, laying on your, when you came in, Highway
Thank you.
Fund 131. Thank you, Mr. Slee. If he were here, I would certainly say I appreciate the in-depth look at this budget. We know every piece about the highway as we look through this. It's a very in-depth budget. As far as I have been able to tell in this, there is no request additional money to the county in this budget. No requested additional money from the county in this budget. Roughly over just over 100,000. The rest of theirs is mostly gasoline tax. Here, a motion to approve by Mr. Gregory, second by Mr. Cothran. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. Just in urban, that's what I thought. Just in urban services. That just comes out of urban services, not both 101 and just 111. Yeah, it just comes out of 111. It's roughly 100,000, a little over a year. It increases just a little bit, but not very much. I think that was one of those things that I was told when we first came on, we need to be careful to watch for that thing called maintenance of effort. It was a great plan at that point in time, to help with some asphalt paving, but we are required to give it year over year. All right. Anything else on here anyone wants to discuss? Any information you need brought to the table? I have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, here a second. All those in favor, go on and get up and walk out. Thank you for your patience tonight. I appreciate it.